What's happening, guys? Another weekend is complete. Still got Sunday night, I guess, but hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Tonight is Sunday Night Scan, which we do every single Sunday about this time, 6, 7, 8 p.m., and try to get you prepared for the week ahead. Last week we had a great video. I always try to add a little bit of insight, at least something that you can have a key takeaway versus just kind of this is what I'm watching and here's what I'm looking for, but something that you guys are able to take away. So I think that I'll probably hit upon that, especially with some of the discussion on the OBLN action on Friday that we talked about in the room, kind of anticipating this squeeze and sort of the why behind it. But most importantly, 6th annual charity conference and golf tournament. We do this annually, October 11th to the 13th. We're going to be doing it in Las Vegas like usual. First and foremost, you do not need to be a golfer to attend. Golf is on Friday, and it's an add-on. So if you are just, straight interested in trading conference type material, meeting people, socializing, and being able to, get some pretty good takeaways from the event, then all you need to do is sign up for the charity. If you'd like to take part in the golf tournament as well, which is a great time, even if you are as bad as me, it's always a fun event, and we have a great time. So that, like I said, is October 11th to the 13th. If you guys are interested in coming, just click to get your tickets now. There's a bunch of different options, but there is a couple more days left. 1, 2, 3. So you've got until Wednesday for the early bird special, which knocks over $200 and some odd off. So once those early bird tickets are done, then we go to the standard rate, and you can always obviously sponsor the event as well. And thank you to all the sponsors that have done so already. If you double check this video, I put it up about 2 weeks ago or so on the scan. You can check out sort of how that day goes, how the event looks, and looking for another great year. So I look forward to seeing a lot of you guys there. The speaker lineup is getting better and better, and there's a lot of new faces, a lot of new guys that you've seen on Twitter for ages, writing and tweeting some really great material, and they're coming to kind of share their knowledge and meet and greet with other traders. So I would say that would be for any new trader or old. It's a really good way to kind of break into kind of that whole networking aspect and meeting the people that you trade with on a daily basis, online, in person. And that's, like I said in one of my prior posts, some of my best trading relationships and friends are all from actually meeting at the Traders for a Cause event. So some of my best trading friends to this date. So and as usual, we'll be doing a meetup. We've done a meetup every single year at some point during the event. I'm not sure the exact date or the time yet, but we've been doing that for the last couple of years, and it's always great to put member faces to names and all that good stuff. So anyway, let's get right back into it. Let's check out the scan for tomorrow. My goal is just going to be waiting for these setups to come. The last couple days in a row, the kind of watch list out of the open has been a little bit more slim. Meaning there's nothing that I'm ready to just hit right out of the open, whether it's long or short. It's more of a, okay, let's make a game plan and then let's make sure that it confirms. Versus this is A+ setup. I'm ready to go. I'm going to probably get involved within the first minute or two, things like that. So I guess that kind of means that the whole momentum kind of fizzled out a little bit, at least in small cap land, the last few days, although it took on a kind of a different form, I would say. Something like SMSI or ACHN, both are not necessarily small cap type trades. I mean, they are, sub $5 type names, but they're not the $1 million, $2 million, $5 million float, but they had some fantastic moves. So it is nice to kind of actually see these moves, including REKR was another one that's been kind of going straight up. But it's nice to see these more long-term type moves, and it's not just probably a fun buying the float, controlling it, and then selling it and walking away, like you've seen numerous times on VISL, among other things. And, the going is great until they pull the plug, and then if you're in, you're screwed. Whereas things like SMSI and ACHN and REKR are actually, they're building a legitimate market, and it's not just, whether or not, one trader or two traders hold the entire float and are controlling it. So it's always healthier to kind of trade those things. So with that said, REKR and SMSI and things like that, they've been main watches the last couple of days. However, you got to kind of wait for that trend to develop versus really attacking it right off the open. So, SMSI, ideally, we have some continuation here. It was a pretty big move, and it did have a pretty nice close on Friday. It came in a little bit. What I'd be looking for is, if it opens too high, if it opens over maybe the 596s, 620, something like that, I'd actually probably be looking for it to fade and maybe retest towards these 560 level areas, and then it might need to consolidate for a couple days and then take that next trend up. This is something where this is kind of was game-changing numbers. All of a sudden, they were expecting 0.02, they got 0.08, turns into 32 annualized, 32 cents a share annualized, and so it might be a new growth phase for this company, and if that's the case, then that could be the game changer day, and from this point forward we just start to see some type of steady trend up towards the teens. So who knows? But with that said, typically it's not going to go straight up, and we'll probably have a little bit of consolidation, let people out the next couple days, and then the big move will happen. So that's why 620 gap up. If it pushes, I'd be looking to fade it. If it has a weak open and consolidates 550, 560s, I'd be looking to maybe take that red to green and risk based off of 550s. HBIO is another nice one. Nice steady grind. Again, clean. It's not something that's just going straight up and not really consolidating or anything like that. So it's kind of going up, consolidating, heading higher, up, consolidate, head higher. So this type of move can actually hold longer than you might think. So I'd be looking at weak opens and probably use 260s as a guide, and potentially get back up towards 350, something like that. But as long as it's a slow, steady trend like this, as you saw, which is the next one I was going to talk about, ACHN, I mean, this kind of action can last longer than you think, and then it can squeeze out, right? So we had a nice, move, kind of just slow, steady grind, gapped up, faded all day. And then the next days, even though it had this huge move, this slow, steady grind just held and held and held, and then it started to squeeze out. So be aware that we are it's a little bit of a different market now, where the small cap, low floats are not going nuts, but these bigger cap or bigger float type names are actually holding trend and really making some pretty decent moves. So kind of think out of the box a little bit. Look for these nice clean moves. They're holding over VWAP. They're confirming and doing what the chart kind of suggests. And then the next thing that you can do to kind of help is where could this go and what resistance could it basically run into. And obviously each time that it kind of tested, you can see it consolidated around each time it was running into resistance, but at that point it just busted through. So now we're heading into some serious resistance. Just by looking left, you can kind of see that 520s is going to be a big level. And then this big volume day, I always like to look at, and that's 566. So anything that, any 520 to 560 type move is going to be of heavy interest to me, because there's a good chance that we run into some prior resistance from prior runs. So that does not mean that it has to stop there, but again, it's just kind of putting yourself on the side of probability, and I have no problem starting into that position and taking it because if I'm wrong, I'm going to stop out, and it was worth that 10-cent risk for 30-cent reward, or 30-cent risk for $1.50 type reward. So as long as the risk makes sense and it starts to suggest that it's getting a little heavy in these areas, then I'm definitely interested. But for now, higher the better. And it's also possible they squeezed everybody out on Friday, and we might not get there. But I would be looking for a similar situation to kind of how I traded it on Friday. So I wasn't trying to find the top. I did put it on a feeler a little bit early, but the main entry was not actually into this 5 push, but as it retested and failed, I started into that short, and same thing over here versus the highs. So it was really about a 5-cent risk for a potential of that 50-cent fade, which is a 10-to-1 reward to risk type ratio, which is fantastic. So be seeing what happens with that. BYND, there's no real reason to kind of come up with a plan right now. Do we wake up and it's 180? Do we wake up and it's 300? Who knows? My thought process is that we probably don't have a crazy runaway train in the sense that it's just going to go up $70 or $80 or $100, like Tilray did. Just because the way in which the option chains are structured compared to how Tilray was back in the day. They were kind of unprepared for it, and therefore there was the huge gaps, and they couldn't really hedge, and with that comes crazy moves. That's not to say that this can't keep on floating up. I just think it's going to be a more structured move like it has, where everybody's kind of expecting some crazy move, and sure, it definitely could happen, but I think a lot of people are expecting that, and therefore premiums are super high, and at the same time, it gives them the ability to kind of control that a little bit better. So you can kind of see that the 230s was based, and you can kind of see that a seller 237 range was also kind of confirmed. I got short here as I had shown on Friday. Basically 239, above 239, and then add 239, 238s. And it flushed out nicely, but, that was a huge $11 flush from the entry. But, you're kind of still thinking there's going to be more, and I think a lot of people are on that same page, and they end up kind of still building and holding and waiting for that 200, 180 type pullback, and then they end up covering into the close, or they end up remaining short. And that's why we are where we are, So I'm going in unbiased, and I'll probably borrow some. We'll see what happens, and we'll go from there. But the key is going to be not to be too aggressive, and if it takes too much of your attention, take it off radar. That's what I said on Friday, but I ended up having a pretty good setup form, so I took the trade. But the day before, it was just on radar, so I kind of decided to trade it, and I wasted an hour or two. I lost about $2.50 a share or something. Again, not size. It's not that it was a money loss that was annoying or bad. It was just I lost an hour or two of watching this thing for no reason, because trading is about focusing on your edge, and in this type of chart, this type of name, you don't really have an edge. I will wait for that day that it's got the 30, the 50, the 80 range, although I don't think it's really coming unless it's to the downside. But anything's possible, and in which case I will be prepared. But I don't want to be there, trying to anticipate that $5 move. I'd rather let the $5 move happen and get the 15 or 20. Just because I think if you're going for that $5 move, you're going to be it's going to be like this. You're going to nail it. You're going to wait. It's going to go back. Nail it. All the way back. And it's just going to frustrate you. And it's going to end up exhausting you to the point where you actually miss the move. And so that's my goal, is just to keep with no bias. If I have no bias, then I'm going to be able to see it clearly when it's time. LK, pretty good read on it the last couple days. I've been talking about this, and week opens for potential breakout. This day, I figured the breakout would be met with resistance back to the prior close, and then I figured it could retest these prior highs this day, and now it's starting to break out. So the IPO day, we were at 25.96, so let's just call it 26. So we might have a nice test of that breakout level, the IPO highs for a breakout level. So I'd be watching all week opens, and week open to me would probably be about 24.60s, 24.50s. Usually 24.60s, 70s versus a 24.50s is comfortable for me. If it pulls back way too much, then it's not something that I really feel comfortable getting involved. I still want shorts to be, on the wrong side. I don't want it to come back enough to let them out and then, just end up trading it for the thought that I want it to break out, but in reality, they let all the shorts out. There's nobody to squeeze. So I see a base kind of forming here in the mid 23s, pretty much 23, 24 base now. And we'll see what happens. This is very much known for kind of reversing very quickly as well. So it's kind of exhausted all the longs, and then it exhausted the shorts, and then it exhausted longs again, trapped some shorts, exhausted, and so on and so forth. So I could see this retesting, breaking out, and then failing all in the same day, and then being down $2 or $3. So have an open mind with these things, and nothing has to go straight up. We've seen it. CRWD, every time it looks fantastic, big breakout candle, bam, comes right back. Same thing here, and then breaks down. We saw it on RVLV, where it has big breakout candle, comes back, sits down. So we want to we want to have an open mind with what these can do, because it's going to keep us, safe. If we're looking at it and we're saying, oh, this thing's going to 30, and the point where you're the most bullish is usually a great sell. REKR, this has been fantastic. It's going to be a borrow each day for me probably until we get the big nail. But so far you can see nice consolidation, higher lows, nice ABCD type setups, both on the full day and then even over here a little bit tighter. And so for now, just let this thing squeeze out. Don't underestimate it. There was a lot of pullback opportunities, and it ended up holding on. It ended up kind of breaking out and pushing towards the fours over here, and then it started to really squeeze. It came all the way back to 450s. People probably start to think, okay, it's done. I'll stay short, and then all of a sudden, Friday happens. So open mind. Ideally 556, maybe a blow off towards 7. I don't know, but we definitely have great volume, great opportunity here, and I think shorts are stuck in a big way. And just because I think they're stuck in a big way does not necessarily mean I feel safe getting long, but I will stock it for the short. OBLN, this one was fantastic. They did an S1A, so basically an amendment. Typically means that they're trying to get their offering up. They're trying to get it effective, making last minute adjustments. Sometimes they change warrant structure or the size of it, or maybe just a couple words in it, whatever it may be. But so they made an amendment, and so that tells everybody, okay, they're going to raise money soon, and maybe it's a good short. All of a sudden it gaps down, and then they just kind of slowly grind it back all day, and it rips up. So I ended up getting involved and into this first move, and just had a little bit of a padding to kind of play with, and then it came back. And as I was watching it come back, those of you guys that know what the SSR is, you can't hit the bid. But what happens is if you want to short 10,000 shares and you put in a lower limit, it's just going to hug the offer all the way down, right? So if it's, for example, in this case, 640 by 641, or if it's 640 by 650 and you put a limit to short 10,000 shares at 630, you're going to immediately go to the best offer, 641. And as it downticks, 640, 638, 634, whatever, you're going to be 1 penny above that offer. And so as they just kind of go down and hug the offer, immediately coming down whenever the bids give out, you can make the assumption that that is a short because it's a limit order lower and they're just trying to get filled. So as it was coming down, you could see them swiping the 10K block. Okay, bam, another guy, swipe them. But they kept it heavy. They kept it coming down a little bit to make shorts feel good. And they did it a few more times, and I was mentioning it in the room, just kind of watch this tape because, if they reclaim the key levels, being this prior top over here and then pretty much this level here. So 630s and 650s were the two levels that I put in the room. If they reclaim that, all those shorts are underwater now. And so they already probably are trapped from pre-shorting, meaning, kind of shorting, anticipating that offering that didn't come or hit midday or late day or whatever. They got on the wrong side early. And now you've got all these other guys stuck. And now it's back up towards the highs and they're squirming in their seat. So we ended up having that nice squeeze and fantastic, breakout. But again, you got to take the front side of the move, and 90% of the time it's going to be a good thing to go ahead and, lock in, right? Went over this on the YouTube video of my, biggest loss last year. Went over it, just kind of talking about different category style trades. And, you is a fantastic setup, but 90% of the time you're going to probably be happy that you sold. And so anyway, you can see failed follow through. And if you're still in after a couple fails, then you're starting to play with fire. And just like I had posted, you saw me, a couple people were asking me about what I thought. You think it'll squeeze into the close? And I just said, look, at this point, if you're still trading it, you're playing with fire. So it's an avoid for me. And nice slam back down to the 640s. So basically, I think they just kind of squeezed out everybody. And then let's see what happens this week. If people start to pressure it again and they get a little too overconfident, then we'll maybe have another squeeze. But the second thing to note here is these guys aren't, it's not their first rodeo. You can see the volume over here. You can see they've been here before. They've done this before. We traded this move. There was some great opportunities there. This was a reverse split, so it was sub dollar, and it ran up to about $1.50. I think it was from like 20 or 30 cents. So at any rate, they've been there before. They know how to run a stock. So we'll see what happens with this thing, but don't count it out yet. But obviously, be aware that if you're trading at pre-market, they could fire an offering down anytime. After hours, offering anytime. So if you're taking it overnight, obviously you're playing with fire. And, just to be full disclosure, they could fire an offering off anytime they get it effective. And that includes midday. They could halt it, all that good stuff, right? But, for me, typically if I'm trading it, I feel more comfortable trading it from 9 to 4 p.m. or maybe like 9 to 2 p.m. As long as the tape isn't heavy. If the tape ever shows that it's heavy, then probably people get too many heads up. Hey, it's coming, and it's not something that I wanna be in, because if it's already showing that it's heavy, then there's a good chance that it comes. So ZIOP, lower the better, as long as it holds 610, 620s, and then potentially more breakouts. Great chart. Had a nice breakout over here in June. Consolidated, held 550 for quite some time. So now if it starts to hold at 6, we could have a nice little breakout. AXSM has been a nice squeezer. We are nearing a big breakout on the daily. You can see the prior tops here, and we're right at that. So it's either going to fail miserably, and we're going to have a nice short, or we're going to have a weak open, and it's going to blast through it. And if that's the case, I'd love to take advantage of that. So I think we're going to have a good trade here. It's been setting up for a long time. I don't care which way it goes, but I think we'll have, $1 or $2 range. FSLY, another fantastic one. This is just like CRWD, RVLV, and all those others. It looks fantastic. It's a great breakout, but don't be surprised if it comes back in $2 tomorrow. So go in with an open mind. But this was an idea on Thursday, right over here. I had mentioned, a trigger basically at 2330s and a trigger at 23s. And so we hit that first trigger. We went straight into the highs, which was the 2180 was or 2310, was the top of these 2 days. And that actually was the high for most of the day over here until it touched a little bit higher into the close. But next day, week open, blast through, takes out that next trigger, and we're retesting towards the highs. So higher the better. Anticipating a reject, but being okay, being familiar that, if it does hold, we could be in for a nice breakout. But again, perfect idea, perfect thought process. Using the left to predict the right, and I think that you can learn a lot from that. And if you familiarize yourself with these types of breakouts, and just to kind of show you what I mean, and how I say it anyway. But you can see this right here, and basically, look left to basically predict that right. And the amount of triggers that were coming up, the 2310 that I mentioned, and the 2230s. Those two levels, once they're hit, once they break, squeezes out. So that is working in this market. Doesn't always work that clean, that well. But get familiar with that kind of stuff, because that's exactly how the whole prediction on this LK type move. You're coming up and you've got a big trigger here. You trigger through and look at the move after it breaks those two prior highs. So always look left to predict right. Real, another nice breakout move. For some reason, the candle is not showing the last one. Let's see if I can change that. Well, you can see here, nice little breakout. So watch dips, and we can potentially get back up towards 27, 28. Maybe we start that nice big rally back. Again, like CRWD, RVLV, be prepared if it fails. A lot of these look great, and they fail the next day. But if it ends up holding, then we have potential. And now the daily chart's updated, so you can see it. So the key levels be 26 and 2660s or so. 2670s. Twitter, nice on Friday. Josh had a fantastic long. Great read. He's really good at that stuff on earnings report and things like that, and really just going with the trend. Whereas I'm like, oh, that's up a lot. Let me look for the short. But had a nice short on it. Had really good covers. I was happy with the covers. Ended up coming back in some more. I covered at 4150s from the 4180s and 90s, I think. But huge range, so it stays on radar. I don't really have a super game plan. We got to see. Are we going to gap up 100 points, 200, 300 tomorrow, or are we going to gap down 200? So let's see what happens tomorrow. Make a plan pre-market. Last two, SLDB. Perceptive has been involved here. I'm going to be watching for a potential big reversal. The right chart, these things have been getting accumulated and breaking out pretty nicely. Watch dips versus these prior levels, VWAP level from Friday. And then last but not least, Overstock. Obviously, another one that's been pretty popular. Great breakout, coming into some serious resistance. A lot more volume this time. Definitely shorts are involved. Look, let's see what happens. It reminds me a lot of how PYX ran too, and it came back huge. And one thing I want to remind myself is that when it does turn, don't take it off radar, right? Because this almost looks the same as Overstock, where it had that first move, came back, and now it's retesting. It did that little hanging around here, and then it had that next breakout, and then it just went straight down. So it went from basically 33 to 16. So my point here is, if you compare it to Overstock, where you had that same huge move, and now you're kind of coming back, you're retesting this level. It's a little bit of a different chart, but point is that if it does make it through this level, these 22 levels, don't take it off radar just because it's starting to break out. Keep an eye on it, and when it starts to break down, we might get that 2 back-to-back-to-back type days of unwind once they squeeze out enough people. So anyway, that's the game plan for tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have a couple different ones on watch off the open. Lately, it's been 50-50. Take 2-3 off scan, 2-3 new ones. during the day, and it's been working all right. Again, I think one of the biggest things has been patience. And not being too aggressive just because you want to bank, just because you see something ripping, does not mean that you need to trade it right away. Take your foot off the pedal a little bit. Let's wait for a good entry. And just because something's up does not mean that it has to pull back. We're having a lot of nice runs in this market. ACHN, case in point, along with SMSI. We've got some really nice moves on bigger float type names. People are not used to this yet, so let's see what happens. That's about it, guys. Have a great night.